2018, I finished roughly 14 series. These are series where everything is published and I've read everything in them. And I do one of these type of videos every single year so that I can give you a rundown of all the series that I've completed, what I thought of them, what my favorite books were, and who I would recommend them to. I always enjoy doing this video because I read a lot of series. The reason I said roughly 14 at the beginning is because I am not completely sure if one of these is finished and I can't find any information about it. I finished the Gold Ciera trilogy by Ray Carson. This is a YA historical with a touch of fantasy, and the main character has what they call a witchy ability where she can sense where gold is in the earth, which is important because the setting of this takes place during the time of the California gold rush. My favorite book in the series was the first one because it was very much about a wagon train traveling in pioneer times, and they had to survive. They faced so many natural elements and obstacles and group dynamics, and I love survival stories where you're having to face the elements and groups of other people to survive, and so that is why the first book really appealed to me. I myself tend to not be a big fan of historical fiction, so that may have played into why I didn't love the second two books quite as much. The next series that I finished last year was Harry Potter, which was a reread, but this was my first time listening to the audiobooks of Harry Potter, so it felt like a whole new experience to me because I read the series start to finish again and listened to it with a new format. I listened to the US audiobooks, which are narrated by Jim Dale. I would highly recommend them. I know the UK audiobooks have I've been told that they have a great narrator as well, but I couldn't get my hands on those. I just thought that the series does wonderfully on audio. It's a great way to re-experience this world. I thoroughly enjoyed my time rereading it and refamiliarizing myself with these characters and this story. There are definitely issues that I wasn't quite aware of when I was like, I don't know how old I was when I read these, young. And I do think J.K. Rowling needs to stop, but I love the series. I think that it has meant a lot to so many people, and so I do consider these to be 5-star books. Next, I read In the AfterDoology by Demetria Lunetta. These are YA post-apocalyptic stories. There are creatures that have started to take over the earth. They look like aliens, but they also eat people, and they don't see very well, so they can just find you based on sound. So if you shoot, if you run, if you shout, they will find you. And so the people have adapted to this world by using sign language, by sneaking around, being very quiet so that they don't get found. Yes, it does sound a lot like The Quiet Place. No, they did not copy each other, but I do think you would like this series if you enjoyed A Quiet Place. I really loved the first book. It delivered everything I want in post-apocalyptic fiction, but the second book, I just wasn't as much of a fan of it, and I didn't feel it was completely necessary. I would still really recommend it if you like creature stories, survival stories, or post-apocalyptic stories. Then I read the entire Cage trilogy by Megan Shepherd, and this is YA science fiction about a human girl who's on Earth, and then she's in a car accident and she wakes up on another planet, and she is basically in captivity. So it is a human zoo. There are, I think, 5 or 6 characters that are all in this one location. It's set up to look like an Earth town, but it's a fake, like a zoo enclosure, and they're being observed by aliens. They're put through these series of tests just to kind of like test their intelligence and their abilities as humans, and they want to get out. I didn't like book 2 in this series. Book 3 was fine for what this series was, and I do think that this would appeal to you if the concept of a human zoo sounds interesting, if you like trials to like prove your worth, and if you're into the idea of human-alien potential romance, which is something that I feel like usually appeals to me. It's weird, but I like it when aliens have to experience human emotions and discover love for the first time and stuff like that. But for whatever reason, this particular relationship just didn't speak to me. But maybe it'll work for you. I also read the Crazy Rich Asians trilogy last year by Kevin Kwan. I'm pretty sure there's only 3 books, but there have been enough time between each book in this series that I think there's potential for there to be more. I'm not completely sure. These are adult contemporary novels about family drama and just very, very rich people and that kind of a culture. We're following one character who is Chinese American, and she's got like modest income, and her boyfriend is part of this really, rich family from Singapore, and she doesn't know this. So when she goes back to meet his family, they're kind of judgy against her because she's not as rich as them, and she is thrown into this world that she's not used to. And I do think this book really excelled with family drama and stuff. I didn't get a great impression of the author because slurs were frequently used, and I don't mean like within their own culture, I mean for other cultures and other groups of people were used. And I also kind of thought there were maybe too many point of views, and the story started to feel kind of muddy. I would have liked more focus. This was good and bad to me. It was not a favorite, but it's fun for what it is, and a lot of people love it. I finished the Themis Files by Sylvain Neuvel. This is currently a finished series. He has said the third book is the finale. However, he is open to writing more in this world in the future. This is adult science fiction. The premise of this story is that these different pieces of a large statue have been found buried all around the world. They all fit together to form one large humanoid statue that's not quite human. And the whole question is, where did the statue come from? What does it do, and why is it here? This entire series is told through transcripts, so there's not a lot of narrative, it's mostly dialogue, and a lot of it is like audio files that have been transcribed onto paper. And because it's intended to be audio files, this series works exceptionally well on audiobook. I loved it. If you're gonna read this one, please choose the audio because they are fantastic productions. The last book was my least favorite just because it didn't have the same sense of urgency and mystery going on as the first two books. Like, you had all the answers and you had them pretty early on in the last book, and I guess that kind of took away a bit of the thrill for me, but I am such a fan of the first two books. I would really highly recommend it. I also read the Graceling trilogy by Kristin Cashore. There are 3 books. They are companion novels. Each one follows a different main character. My favorite of the series was Graceling, and part of that is because it was a very well-produced audiobook. Again, it had a full cast with sound effects and music. This is YA fantasy, and it follows characters who have different abilities. The Gracelings are graced with different powers, and a lot of times the rulers want to either use those powers or they have some sort of power of manipulation, and it's just examining this world and how things came to be and overthrowing an evil ruler. I loved all 3 of the viewpoints. The first book was my favorite, but I really enjoyed the other 2 books as well, and I was a big fan of Kristin Cashore last year. She ended up being one of my favorite authors of the year. I also read the Miele 2.0 trilogy by Deborah Driza. These books are YA science fiction. This is about a girl who thought she was human, but she finds out she's actually an android that was created, and she was implanted with all these memories and stuff, and she's actually been created by like a warfare group that wants to use her, but she thinks she's human. She thinks that she feels emotions and everything, and she doesn't want to be used as a prop in a war, and she doesn't want to be an android. And I do think that's a really interesting concept, especially when it talks about what makes you human, what gives you conscience, what provides emotions. Can she feel emotions, and can she make her own choices, or is she just like programmed to be a certain way? And I did really enjoy that discussion on it. I didn't enjoy every bit of it, and I didn't necessarily think it needed to be 3 books, but it's worth checking out if you like that concept. I read the Unearthly Trilogy by Cynthia Hand, which is a YA paranormal series about angels. We're following the point of view of a girl who's an angel, and she's always known she is an angel, and she is the new girl in school, and she has like a romance with a human. So in my opinion, this kind of gave me vibes like Twilight from the point of view of the otherworldly character. You know, if you like that paranormal setup, you may like this one. I look back at this series, and book 2 was my least favorite because it was just really sad, and I don't think that the plot and the focus of that book had a large significance in the overall story, but I did actually really enjoy this a lot more than I thought I would. So I liked the first book a lot, and I would recommend it if you want a paranormal series. Then I read the entire Ruby Red trilogy last year by Kristen Gear. These are YA books about time travel. It's about a girl who she thinks she's ordinary. Her cousin is supposed to get this time travel gene, so her cousin has prepared for it all of her life, but then oops, surprise, the main character is actually the one with the gene, and she's thrown into this world of time travel, attempting to hunt down certain characters and objects in time, and she has no training on it, so she has no hope of blending in historical times and kind of makes a mess of things. I enjoyed the way that it played with time. It's got similar vibes to the Passenger Duology by Alexandra Bracken. What I really didn't like about it is there was a great deal of negativity towards fat characters. This series was on my TBR forever because before I even started my channel, when I just watched BookTube, it was talked about a lot. Having read it, I think I would have been fine skipping it. I don't think I really gained a lot or a brand new favorite, but it was enjoyable. So do with that what you will. If you like time travel, if you've just been really curious about it, check it out. But if this is kind of an older series that you've lost a bit of interest in, I think you're fine skipping it. I finished the Given Twoology by Mindy McGinnis last year. This is a YA fantasy. It's a pretty dark fantasy. It is about a character who's been born and raised to be a sacrifice so that the sea won't flood this island kingdom, and all the different groups of people on the island start to make alliances or go to war with each other to find the safest spot on the island, and also to gain control of this girl that's supposed to be the given, the sacrifice. It's not my favorite Mindy series, but I really enjoyed seeing her write fantasy and what she could bring to it, and I thought that this world was pretty unique. Like, they had their own unique phrasing, curses, and language that they would use that were very sea related because the sea is such a big part of their lives, and so I enjoyed the world building in that aspect. There is an emphasis on rape culture in a fantasy type world, so it may be off-putting to some, but I did enjoy this series. I finally finished the A Darker Shade of Magic trilogy by Victoria Schwab, the first trilogy. I know that there are going to be more books set in the world that are like a different story, but those 3 books are considered their own sets. I finished that this year. I'm so glad I did. This is an adult fantasy series about different worlds. Like, there are 4 worlds, and one of them has been completely consumed by magic, and like everything is destroyed, and there is magic threatening to seep into the other worlds and kind of destroy them as well, and there are only a couple of characters who can travel through the worlds who are trying to stop this from happening. My favorite book in this series, I think, would be the second book because it dealt with the competition and a lot of like hidden identities and stuff, and I really just enjoyed the action and the intrigue of that one. I do feel like the first book could have been a standalone, and that the second and third books should have been condensed together into one book and shorter because the way that the stories tied together, but I really enjoyed it. I like the writing, I like the characters, I had a good time, especially with book 2. I am really looking forward to more set in this world. I also finished the Warcraft Zoology by Marie Lu, which are YA sci-fi books about hacking, virtual reality, a competition. The main character hacks her way into these big games, and she is basically tapped by the creator of this technology to work for him as a spy. I thought this series was really action-packed and fun. A big critique that I hear and that I agree with is that the main character isn't super well developed. We're told she has these great abilities, but it's more of a tell and not show thing. And I agree with that, but I didn't need any more from her character. I was satisfied. I think Marie Lu writes this type of sci-fi really, really well. It's very suited to her writing. If you read her Legend trilogy and you liked the Antarctica Society and the way that points and stuff were given, I think that this one will appeal to you because it's kind of similar to that. And she really plays with good guys and bad guys really well, and morally gray characters. And I really liked how the second book got into how much control social media and technology have over our lives, which is always a concept that is interesting to me, and I think you would enjoy it if you like that idea. And then the 14th series that is on my list of completed series that I don't know if it's really a completed series is the Villains series by Victoria Schwab. I don't think she has another book deal, so if you're watching this in the future and there's like 5 books in this series, remember, I'm from the past and we didn't know there were going to be more books, but these are adult sci-fi about superheroes. Originally we are following Victor and Eli, and Victor has the ability to inflict pain on anybody, and Eli has the ability to heal himself. All of them are villains. They all have, you know, mixed motives, although you root for some at sometimes because they're the better of the villains, and it's really interesting. It's a really great anti-hero story, morally gray characters. If you like that, I think you would like these books. I love Vicious. Vicious was one of my favorite books of all time, And Vengeful had a lot of really great aspects to it, and I love the characters, especially the women characters in this book. They were awesome, but I felt like the story lost focus in including so many different characters, and they all have like these different goals and stuff in mind, plus it didn't feel like I got closure at the ending. I would love to see these stories as movies. I think they would be fantastic on the big screen. There's a lot of action, the powers seem like they would be very cool visually, and just, I would love that. But I did enjoy this series, but book 1 was my favorite. Hey, so I was editing this video and I realized that I had left out a series that I finished last year. It is the Unblemished Trilogy by Ciera. This is a YA series, it's fantasy. The main character is just a normal girl, and one day she finds out that there are parallel versions of the world and that she belong to another world. Basically there's magic and all these different magical creatures and stuff exist, and she has a big role in it. Like, she was born with a birthmark on her face that was very unusual, and she's always been really self-conscious about it, but in the other world these marks mean something. It means some part of their power. So she actually belongs to another world, she has great power, and she gets caught up in this big battle between good and evil, between light and darkness. There are a lot of pop culture references that you may like, especially if you're into musicals and Broadway shows and just music in general. I think Ciera has compared it before to Once Upon a Time. That show, she loves that show, and this is kind of like that, where in one world it's like the real world and you're just like a normal person, but then in another world you're actually this fairy tale royal character or whatever. So I think if you like fairy tales, this one will appeal to you. It's not a retelling of anything specific, it's its own whole new thing, but I think it has those similar traits and that you would enjoy it if you love music, fairy tales, and other worlds. And also, Ciera does not agree with me on this, but I think that this had a vibe similar to Shadowhunters, like especially the first book, you know, like how Clary finds out about this other world and that she's part of it because of her mother. The first book, Unblemished, felt like that to me. So it may appeal to you if you like the Shadowhunters as well. That's a lot of series, but that is everything that I finished in 2018. I'd love to know what series you finished last year, or something you finished already in 2019 would be fine as well, because I know this video normally goes up at the end of the year for me, but I am late in posting it and even filming it, as you can tell. Thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know what series you have recently finished, and I will see you in the comments.